Hey, everybody, welcome to the Yoke Endurance Podcast. This is episode 0, the podcast premiere episode, the introduction to everything the Yoke Endurance Podcast is meant to be, and maybe some things that it's not meant to be. I think I have pressed record now for the last 3 or 4 hours, and this is probably the 125th take. I've had just every single silly thing happen in the course of that 3 hours to prevent me from getting this recording done, and I'm thinking maybe we're here. There was a Fast and the Furious event going on in front of my house for a while with some 2-stroke motors, and I just couldn't drown that out. And then there was a dog that, man, the guy just would not stop barking. Couldn't put an end to that. And then my dog started crying and whining and going off. And anyways, all I'm saying is take 125. Let's cross our fingers that this is the one that goes in the books. So, Yoke Endurance Podcast is something I've been working on for a while here. And hopefully this is it. No, this is it. This is the premiere episode, the introduction episode, everything Yoke podcast. The Yoke Endurance Podcast. Yoke Everything is the YouTube channel, but I digress. So, Yoke Endurance Podcast is about achieving your endurance fitness goals. And more specifically, it is about achieving those goals in spite of the fact that maybe you're out of shape, maybe you don't have experience doing these things, maybe you're overweight. I'm all of those things. I have some experience doing some of the things that I plan to do in the future, but I do not have the experience of doing all of those things and to the extent that I plan to do them. I am completely out of shape and I am completely overweight. I'm currently weighing at 227 pounds. However, just a few months ago, I was weighing 257 pounds. That's 30 pounds in only a few months. And I shed all those pounds training for endurance events. And so I decided, hey, I've wanted to share this experience and share the knowledge that I'm gaining, the experiences that I'm gaining with everyone, and I just need to get it done. Now, I've been tweaking thises and that's and camera settings and microphones, and I've been doing all the things to make it perfect, and we are here. We have arrived at perfection. Well, it's probably not perfect. However, I think we're pretty close to acceptable at the highest level of acceptable that or the lowest level / medium that I was willing to accept in putting out a podcast product so that the audio was ingestible, and that the video was clear and, looked like I like it to look, or looked like me sitting in my pain cave discussing endurance training and weight loss. So the first event that I have on the books, I have paid my entry fee. I have set up my accommodations to attend and to complete the event, is the Baton Memorial Death March. Next week, I will have a podcast going over the Baton Memorial Death March and all of what it entails, which I'll just quickly, it is a 26.2 mile, which is a full marathon distance rucking event with a 35-pound rucksack. Pretty arduous thing to do, especially considering it is in south central New Mexico at the White Sands Missile Range. White Sands Missile Range is a really cool place to look at because of the White Sands, but it is not a really cool place to go for a 26.2 mile walk with a 35-pound rucksack on. So I will go over that in the next week's podcast, including maybe some history of why the Baton Memorial Death March exists and why it exists, where it exists in New Mexico. But again, this podcast is going to go over other endurance events as well. My major goal is to complete the full distance Ironman. If you're unfamiliar with a full distance Ironman, it consists of a 2.4 mile open water swim, followed by a 112 mile bicycle ride. And just to top it off, you go for a little jog at the end of 26.2 miles, which is a full distance marathon. I think each one of those individually is a good endurance goal. And I think all of them together is ridiculous. And ridiculous is what I'm shooting for. And it's even more ridiculous because, well, I'm out of shape, I'm overweight, out of practice, but because I would like to do it within this year, in the month of November, which is, roughly 10 and a half, 11 months away. So I have a short period of time because I'm recording this in January of the same year that I want to complete the event. The Bataan Memorial Death March is actually in March, so I'm recording this in January while planning a rucking event in March, mid-March. Lot of training to get done, a lot of consistency to be applied, a lot of process to be implemented. And that is what I'm going to go over on a weekly basis, all the processes, all the tools, the tricks, the tips, everything that I learn along the way, equipment reviews of what I've used, things that I've learned, the minimums that you need to do these things. And, some things like Ironman is in triathlon is not something everybody wants to do. And I completely understand that. But maybe you just want to do a 5K, maybe you want to do a rucking event like I'm doing, or maybe you want to do a mud run, or any kind of endurance event that you're thinking of doing. And maybe you're thinking, hey, this guy's talking about training for a full distance Ironman within the same year, and he's out of shape and he's out of his mind. And I think setting goals like that is awesome. And if you're here thinking like, hey, that's just not something I'm down for, that's okay. You don't have to be down for it, but I'm just kind of try to open your mind to the idea that it's possible to just apply consistent hard work and reach an endurance goal. I think endurance is one of the things that is easiest to achieve, or simplest to achieve. I should say easy is not the word. It is incredibly hard to build endurance, but I think it is something everyone can do. We might not all have the, I don't know what you would like to call it, the genetic predisposition for powerlifting or for high jumping. We might not be built for some of these different events, but everyone, I believe, is built for endurance. Maybe not to be fast, maybe speed is not what we are built for, but we're all probably built to endure reasonable levels of exercise or cardiovascular exercise at a particular heart rate or lactate. We can do it for a long time if we do it at the right speed or we do it in the right amount. And I think we can all achieve that just through consistent training and consistent hard work. And so consistency will be a key term throughout this podcast. And I will go over all of these different events and all these different things week by week as I log more miles. Now, like I said earlier, just a few months ago, I was 257 pounds, and now I'm down to 227 pounds. That's 30 pounds in just a few months time, and all it took was consistent work. And the consistent work that I applied wasn't even really dieting or any of that stuff, although dieting was probably going to help or work, and we'll probably go over a little bit of that as I get deeper into doing it. But at this moment, I'm not doing a whole lot of it, so I'm not going to speak about a whole lot of it, but we will get to that point where it is time to really dial in nutrition. I don't even want to call it dieting. It's nutrition. We need to eat the right things to achieve our goals. So when it's time to talk about nutrition, I'll talk about nutrition. But as far as me just losing 30 pounds, all I did was get on my stationary bike trainer for 10 and sometimes even 14 hours a week consistently. And that burned a lot of calories, and that caused me to lose a lot of weight. And I made it through Thanksgiving and Christmas without gaining it all back. Even though I had some weeks there where I was doing things that took me away from my trainer. So I'm very happy to be here in January without all of the pounds back on that I lost, and I have a place to move forward now. But the fact is, 227 pounds is too much weight for a guy of my stature. I'm about 5 feet, 9.5 inches tall, and the half inch counts in height for me as a man. But 227 pounds is obese, and I'm probably clinically obese. I think the BMI is going to be up there over 30, and that is unacceptable. At least I think it's unacceptable for me, and maybe it's acceptable for you. This is not an aesthetics podcast. I'm not here to talk about how to get six-pack abs, because I don't know how to get six-pack abs. But I do know that if you start running and you don't stop, you can run a full distance marathon. I have run a full distance marathon in the past. So I know kind of what it takes to get there. And I did that from a position, I was much more fit than I am today. But it just putting one foot in front of the other and not stopping. Finishing an endurance event is all about not stopping. Sometimes when you stop, you don't get started. But so yeah, I'm going to go over what I'm doing and how I'm going to get there, and how maybe you can learn, and maybe in that process, you should be able to learn some things about how you can do the same. Maybe get some motivation or some belief that you can do the same. Maybe you know some other people that are interested in completing these different events, and they want to know about the experience, the gear, the equipment, all the little things that go into going to endurance events, and completing endurance events, from packet pickup to transitions. There's just a lot that goes into it, and I'm going to talk about all of that, as well as just kind of on a weekly basis come back and tell you what I was able to achieve in the days that gone by. Excuse me. What I was able to achieve in the days that have gone by, as well as just discussing what's coming up in the next week, next month. Discuss planning, the way to plan a training, a way to program a training plan, and tailor it to your life. Because a lot of these events, like, to be honest, Ironman is definitely not for everyone, because it does take a ridiculous amount of hours on a weekly basis for a long period of time to be in the condition required to complete that full event. I think I've got a schedule that's going to accommodate it. I think I do. I might be surprised and not have it, but I think I got it. I think I can do it. And that's why I set it as a goal, because I saw that it was something I might have the opportunity to do this year. Now, I don't think every year I would have had the opportunity to do it. I don't think I would have had the time every year to put into the training. But I think this year is going to be a unique year, and that's why I'm going to tackle it this year. As far as the future of this podcast after we complete the full Ironman, well, I don't know. But it will be endurance related. Maybe we'll talk about getting faster. Maybe we'll talk about doing something even crazier than a full Ironman, like one of those 100-mile runs, which I think, right now I'm like, whoa, 100-mile run sounds ridiculous. Doesn't sound like something I even want to be a part of. But a lot of people probably think about that, about the full distance Ironman. A lot of people think that about just a marathon. Marathons are in and of themselves a big deal. Running a marathon is a big deal. So if you want to run a marathon, we're going to get there in this podcast because we have to get to running a marathon, but not just running a marathon. We have to get to running a marathon after swimming 2.4 miles and cycling for 112 miles. So, but a marathon is a piece of that. And it's a big piece of it in the sense that it's not the longest part of it. It is maybe not even, well, it might be the longest time suck for me. But for many athletes, it isn't even the longest time suck, but it's probably the most arduous part of it because of the level of fatigue that you're starting that portion of the race. A lot to think about. Anyhow, we are going to train for all of those things. I don't really run right now. I have been riding the cycle, as I've talked about, the stationary bike. Haven't been doing a lot of road riding. I think I went on one road ride in the last couple of months. It's the winter now. I don't really want to be out on the road riding. So I'm just going to log more and more hours on the indoor trainer. So next week's podcast, and I hope you come and join me. There might be a couple of other episodes out right now. I'm going to try to maybe batch a couple of episodes. But the next weekly episode, which will come out the week after this one is released, sometime in January of this year, is going to be on the Baton Memorial Death March, and I'll go over the history of that event and just kind of my training plan for that. Tomorrow I'm going out to do a baseline run, ruck. So I guess running is like overselling it. I'm going to go kind of walk, jog, maybe not jog is probably overselling it. I'm going to go walk and shuffle with a 35-pound pack on down a dirt road. So no elevation change, just flat dirt road. And I want to get a baseline for how long it takes me to complete a mile, because I do need to achieve a pacing goal. So I need to see where I am today on just doing that for 1 mile. And then I'll probably do it for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I'm hoping probably to do 10 miles tomorrow, and see what the 1 mile time is, and then see what the 3 mile time is, the 5 mile time, etc. So 10 miles is my goal for my first ruck. I don't suggest that for people, but I do have some background in rucking. I know what it's like to have a backpack on. A lot of my recreational activities involve wearing a backpack that weighs similar to 35 pounds. So my body is not unfamiliar for having that weight on the shoulders. So I would probably suggest for others, which I will go over in like I said, the Baton Memorial Death March podcast. I'll go over maybe more reasonable ways to build up to wearing 35 pounds. Maybe you want to start with the sack with just your water and your food for the day. And then you want to start adding pounds over time, pounds and miles over time. But it's all endurance. All endurance is just about moving forward and not stopping. So that's what this podcast is going to be about, is moving forward and not stopping. Again, this is the Easy Yoke Endurance Podcast. My name is Jesse, and I hope you will join me every week along the way.